Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. The Oregon Ducks commitment sweatshirt comes on early Wednesday afternoon for not one, but two commitments for Dan Lanning. We're going to start with offensive tackle Alex Harkey committing from Texas State, and we're going to talk about Jamari Johnson, the tight end committing from Louisville. Really excited. What I want to start with here is you're getting two really good football players at two positions that we're kind of question marks heading into 2025. You start at the offensive tackle spot. I mean, the Johnny Cornelius heading to the NFL after this year. Josh Connerly has a decision to make. My personal opinion is that kid's played himself into a first-round NFL draft pick. So you look at Dan Lanning and said, hey, we might have to replace both our starting offensive tackles heading into the 2025 year. On paper, Oregon is going to lose a lot of talent. A lot of really good football players from this 2024 roster are moving on to the NFL, but there aren't that many positions that I'm all that concerned with. And we're going to talk about some of those positions later on. One of the positions that I do think, I don't know if I'd use the word concern, but a position that we probably have some question marks about heading into 2025 was the offensive tackle spot. You're bringing a guy like Alex Harkey, a bona fide, power four caliber starter. That makes you feel really good about where Oregon is going to sit at the offensive tackle position heading into 2025. And although, Alex Harkey has not started consistently at the power four level coming from Texas State, this was a kid that was really coveted by a lot of power four programs. The consensus is that Alex Harkey can start at the power four level. And I buzzed his film against Arizona State, a power four team that Texas State played, was really impressed. And so not only is this a really good football player joining this Oregon Ducks roster, it's a really good football player at a position Oregon wanted to address. We're going to get into Alex Harkey. We're going to get into Jamari Johnson. Going to talk about a few other targets Oregon has. We got a busy episode to get into now. Before we do, and as always, to the Oregon fans, it's been a blast talking this program, whether we're talking it on the football field in 2024, whether we're doing some transfer portal updates. The amount of support y'all continue to show to the fellas continues to be amazing. Appreciate you guys. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Without further ado, let's get into it. And let's start with Alex Harkey because to me, this might not be the best player that Oregon brings in through the transfer portal this window, but this might be the most important one. You look at Oregon and say, at the quarterback spot, you're losing Dylan Gabriel, but you feel pretty good about Dante Moore or Austin Novosad kind of stepping in 2025. You lose a couple of really talented wide receivers on the outside. You got the Corey Moore, Dallas Wilson coming in. Jeremiah McClellan and Jurion Dickey already on this roster. You feel pretty good about what the wide receiver room is going to be. If there was one position that you kind of look at and say, we don't see a clear cut and dry starter taken over in 2025, it was probably at the offensive tackle position. Alex Harkey, this kid goes a long way in terms of mitigating some of those concerns. Now you get into Alex Harkey, started his career at Colorado, transferred over to Texas State, started all 12 games at the offensive tackle spot for Texas State in 2024. And the big key for me is, one, he grades out pretty damn well, right? 461 pass pro opportunities, only 12 quarterback hurries given up. When you're evaluating these kids from the G5 levels, you normally want to go and watch them play some Power 4 competition. Thought he looked really, really good against Arizona State. I think most importantly, I think he has the traits to be a Power 4 guy. We had the same question marks about a Johnny Cornelius coming over from Rhode Island, making the jump to Oregon a couple of years ago. Those question marks were mitigated because you take one look at a Johnny Cornelius and say, yeah, that kid is a Power 4 starting offensive tackle. I think you can say the same thing for a guy like Alex Harkey. And at the end of the day, you're just adding some more veteran competitive depth into this offensive line, which is how Dan Lanning has built this program. Enough is never enough. We want as many good players on this team as possible. Whether Alex Harkey starts or not, that competition, that competitive depth that you're building at the offensive tackle spot, it is going to pay off for Oregon in 2025. Now, the next commitment I want to talk about is Jamari Johnson. This kid's fascinating. Him coming out of high school he's such a freaky athlete from the state of California. He goes to Louisville, settles on the tight end position. What I love most about this addition is, look, you're going to lose Terrence Ferguson, but you're getting Kenyon Sadiq back. Kenyon Sadiq is just this offensive juggernaut weapon who I would anticipate being much more utilized in 2025 as the primary tight end. But you want Kenyon Sadiq in space. I mean, he is just a difference maker as a pass catcher split out wide. Yes, he can inline block, and I think that's a massive addition he's put into his game in the 2024 year. But is that how you primarily want to use him? No, probably not. You want to be a difference maker as a pass catcher. All right, well, we would like to run a lot of 2 tight end sets. We like to go to a lot of 12 personnel. We've seen Oregon do that. Let's go bring in a tight end that's going to be a dog as an inline blocker. And that's Jamari Johnson, right? 6'5", 270 pounds, moves relatively well. Don't get it twisted. I think he can be a difference maker as a pass catcher as well. But you kind of got the 2 tight ends that you're feeling good about. You know, Kenyon Sadiq, more of that pass catching tight end that's going to be just a matchup nightmare for a safety, cornerback, linebacker, whoever they want to try to stop him with. And then Jamari Johnson as that attached inline blocker who almost looks like an offensive tackle at times when you see him line up in line. I love the addition. Good football player. But again, once again, at a position that I think is really going to benefit Oregon in 2025. That's one of my bigger takeaways. Yeah, Dan Lanning's going to look to upgrade every single aspect of the roster, right? Enough is never enough. But you're seeing some targeted, right? Dylan Tiemann, we were missing that cover one, single high safety that can do it all. You go out and grab him. You want some more veteran presence in the cornerback room to go along with what's going to be a really young, talented cornerback room. Go grab the kid from Northwestern. And now you go, hey, we got to get some more starting tackles in this room. We got to go get an inline tight end. They're bringing in good players at the positions you want to see them bring in. Now, a couple targets that I want to just buzz by really quick. Isaiah World, I would be surprised if Alex Harkey is the only offensive tackle that Oregon decides to bring in. Isaiah World's a guy that probably should be going to the NFL, quite frankly. I think that's how good he is. 6'8", 310. Again, jumping up from the G5 level, you take one look at this kid and say, yeah, he's a Power 4 caliber tackle. He's coming down to 3 schools. We got Oregon. We got Texas A&M and Nebraska. He's visiting Oregon this weekend. To me, this is a must-get for the Oregon Ducks. You land Isaiah World to go along with Alex Harkey and say, hey, we feel pretty damn good about what this offensive tackle position is going to be in 2025, which is probably the biggest concern that we have. And so Oregon, again, big-time target. We'll see how it goes. Another name that I'll just kind of throw out there with little connection to Oregon, but this kid can play. Ffoa from Washington State. Really fascinating story. I was kind of diving into him. Came into Washington State as an edge rusher, put on some weight, became an offensive lineman. This was another guy that was getting some day 2, day 3 grades to go to the NFL, decides to hit the transfer portal. If you want to bring in a NFL caliber offensive tackle to replace the 2 tackles you're losing, this kid would make a lot of sense. And so you're starting to see Oregon kind of fill in the cracks of their depth chart, which is to me exactly how you want the transfer portal to be used, right? You don't want to build your roster with the portal. You want to fill in the cracks. That's kind of what Oregon's doing. If you're looking at maybe 1 or 2 potential other positions that I think Oregon could address, maybe you start at off-ball linebacker. I mean, you're losing Bryce Betcher, Jeff Bossa, Justin Jacobs. I mean, Bossa and Betcher have played a lot of football for Oregon the last couple of years. I feel good about guys like Platt. I feel good about guys like Devin Jackson. But maybe you want to add a little bit more competition to that room. Although Kamari House might not necessarily have the experience that Oregon's looking for, this kid can play. And he is a phenomenal athlete that found the football field a lot as a true freshman. You know, was a 3-star undersized linebacker from St. John Bosco, commits to Washington. I mean, 371 snaps as a true freshman at off-ball backer. That's really good. 12% missed tackle rate, pretty dang low for a young cat. 4 pass breakups, 1 interception, really good in space. This would be another guy that I would kick the tires on. Not necessarily because off-ball linebacker is a massive hole that I see Oregon have, but more importantly, just you want to fill in some of that production you're losing with guys like Boss and Betcher moving on after 2024. The last name, a controversial name that I really like for Oregon is Bear Alexander. We've seen the impact that Derek Carman and Jamari Caldwell have on this Oregon defense, just legitimate game records on the inside. I think they've taken this Oregon defense to another level in 2024. I feel good about guys like Jericho Johnson and Aiden Breland and Amari Washington kind of being guys in 2025, but maybe you want to add one more piece, a guy that has significant upside. Bear Alexander would be it. And again, has the consistency been there? No. Do you have some off the field question marks? Absolutely. Why I love this fit so much is give me some of the best cultures that you see in all of college football. Oregon's at the top of the list of every single person's list. What better environment to insert Bear Alexander into than one of the best cultures that you see in all of college football? You're taking a guy that maybe needs to figure some stuff out off the field, putting him in a locker room that is full with phenomenal leadership, starting with your head coach, Dan Lanning. To me, Bear Alexander would make a ton of sense for Oregon as well. I believe he's going to get on campus at some point, so we'll update this one as it goes. Wanted to hop on a little 2-for-1 action with the Oregon Ducks. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. We'll talk to y'all later. Peace.